All right, everybody, you've just tuned into the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. Your Pittsburgh Steelers, ladies and gentlemen, are 7-0, and once again, they're the only unbeaten team remaining in the National Football League. And this week, they will travel to the Lone Star State to take on the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry World, where well, there's going to be more Steelers fans than there is Cowboy fans. I can tell you that right now, of the percentage that's allowed in there. But we'll get into that and much more on the Cowboys later. But first, Cry Boys. Yeah, well, there's something. A lot of crying going on down there in Dallas right now.
I would like to take credit for that, but it's not mine. It's LC Greenwood's.
That's true. It does go back to LC. And so much more. A good piece today from Gordon, our Steelers historian, by the way, on Super Bowl 13. If you want to check that out at steelcityblitz.com. Good stuff there. But anyway, gentlemen, let's not belabor the point any further. Let's jump in and talk a little bit about the Steelers' unbelievable win in Baltimore. Ian, go ahead and just lay out your general thoughts on what you saw on Sunday in Maryland.
Holy crap. I can't believe we won this fucking game. I mean, we were dead in the water. We were, thinking back on it after the game, we were down 17-7, getting run all over. Basically went 4-and-out to start the second half, and we're punting back to a Baltimore team that had pretty much had their way with us on the ground. I mean, we were on the verge of, going down 24-0 or 24-7, sorry, 24-7.
Yeah.
And being in some serious trouble. And then Baltimore comes out and decides not to run the ball. Alex Highsmith makes a great interception, and less than 10 minutes of game action later, we're in the lead. Highsmith's interception came at 14:09 in the third quarter, and then James Conner scored a touchdown to put us ahead at 5:41. So it was basically like 8.5 minutes of game time.
Right.
We went from down 10 and punting to in the lead. Like the way that game changed so fast was incredible.
The third drive of the second half, though, was a thing of beauty.
Yes.
Oh, you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that there was no luck involved in that.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll definitely get into the second half and the offense and everything for sure. But Ian, finish your comments.
Yeah, just it's one of the weird things happen in this rivalry, right? It wouldn't be the best rivalry in football if weird things didn't happen.
Right.
How often do you have a game where a team runs for 265 yards and loses? But Baltimore turned the ball over 4 times and committed 9 penalties for 110 yards.
There you go.
On the other hand, Baltimore was 8 for 15 on third downs. I mean, they were better than 50%, but we stopped them on that 4th down and goal, or 4th down inside the 10-yard line when it really counted. And, we talked a lot this year, early in the year, about how the Steelers were learning important lessons while they were still winning. And you saw a lot of those lessons that they learned in those games come back in this one. Ben talked last week about how this team it felt a little early to talk about like a team of destiny kind of feeling, but this team had that, whatever you want to call it, grit, heart, intestinal fortitude to carry them through tough situations. They learned against Houston they could come back if they were down at halftime. They proved that here. They learned against Philadelphia that the defense could come up big even if they'd been being gashed all game. That came back here. They learned against Denver that even if you give up a big play, the defense can come back on the next play and come through with a big play, get a turnover or a sack or something like that. You saw that happen again here in this game. So a lot of those lessons they learned early in the season are now coming back against these good opponents. And it's a been there, done that kind of thing. They're not going into it with oh man, we have no idea what we're doing. We've never been through this before. This is, we're facing some adversity. We're just going to fold like some previous teams did. These teams it's a been there, done that attitude, and they were there and did that against some bad teams, but it helps you when you play good teams that you have that experience to fall back on.
Yeah, and absolutely, this team did. My feeling was like you. I was just in some form of stunned state that we had been able to hang on and win that game after really not being in a position to do so. It seemed like for most of it. Ben, your thoughts as you watched this thing unfold last Sunday.
Obviously I'm really glad that I was wrong. First of all,
yes, same here.
Yeah, I mean we all pretty much suck.
Yep.
I mean, basically, general thoughts are this: Wink Martindale, Dean Martindale, nickname Wink, the Ravens defensive coordinator, has had Ben Roethlisberger's number for years. He really has. He tends to hold Ben to, less than stellar numbers, and always has. And Ben did not look good in the first half at all.
No. He
was hurried. He was making bad decisions. It was 4 of 10 in the first half for 82 yards or something. It was pathetic. It was pathetic. But they come back out in the second half, and Ben said they were just kind of making it up as they went along.
He wasn't kidding. Yeah.
No. He basically was like, hey, I'm going to tell the offensive line they have this protection when I see what the defense is doing, and I'm going to tell the guys that are running routes, this is the route you're running. And it was working. So they just kept doing it because it was so unpredictable, I guess. And the run game was much better in the second half, although it wasn't terrible in the first. It's just the passing game was really bad. But really it came down to the fact that they could sustain drives in the second half.
Yeah.
And as Ian mentioned before, all the turnovers, man. I mean, 4 turnovers, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. When you do that, you're not going to win games. You're just not. It doesn't matter how many yards you put down. They gashed the Steelers bad in the first half. The second, not quite as bad. And as Ian pointed out, the defense came up big in that 4th down inside the 10-yard line. That was beautiful. Intestinal fortitude, mental toughness. Teams that have a lot of character, that have high character guys. I'm going to open something.
There it is.
Tend to play through things like this better than teams that have a lot of super talented individuals. And that's what was wrong with the Steelers before, when they had the high-powered offense and their defense wasn't so good. They lacked talent on the defense. They lacked character all the way around, and they lacked locker room leadership. Yeah. And this year, they've got a lot more talent on defense than they had before. They've got locker room leadership that is absolutely solid. They've got a whole bunch of guys, a whole bunch of jacks of all trades on offense, if you will. Right. Guys who are pretty good at a lot of things. Maybe nobody's really stellar at anything on offense. Well, unless you count David DeCastro. But nobody's really stellar. But you got a whole bunch of guys that are playing as hard as they can to make the team better. And that's really what is driving this thing. And I said it last week, and I'll say it again. This is a special season. It feels to me like this could really be a special deal, and we need to enjoy this. We need to fully sit down, sink into this thing, and enjoy it, because we're watching what's going to be a really special year. I still don't think they're going to go undefeated. I think at some point they will stumble.
Yeah.
Could even be this week. I mean, it's absolutely a possibility.
Yeah, and we'll definitely.
When that happens, I won't say this team, is a bad team. No. I will not be that guy. I will not be one of these idiots. It's all Tom. See, Tom, it sucks. I'm not going to be that guy. Well, you guys knew that already. But I've acknowledged all the way along, and I will continue to, that they are not playing perfect football, and that they are learning lessons. while winning games, which beats the hell out of losing and learning lessons.
No question.
You know?
Let me piggyback on one of those last comments you made here, and Ian, I'll throw it to you. The fact that the Steelers in the first half against the Titans, it was one of the best first halves that we've seen in a long time. They put up 24 points. They just looked really good offensively, balanced, doing everything well. And in the second half, they only scored 3 points. They hung on for the win. Then Sunday, they come out, and, if Robert Spillane doesn't get that pick six, they're probably looking at 17-0 at the half, and had just a horrible first half. And then in the second half, they start finding things that work again.
Yes.
What's going on here?
They played 2 of the 3 best teams in the AFC. They played 4 terrible quarters consecutively, got outscored 34-10 with the offense only putting up 3 points, and somehow won both games. So, I mean, when you play good teams, sometimes these things happen. Sometimes it's a halftime adjustment that one team makes that the other team isn't quite able to counter. Sometimes, in this case, we made some halftime adjustments, specifically on defense. I was listening to Arthur Moats on one of the radio shows this week, talking about how it was a great point, and I didn't notice it when I was watching the game live, but I noticed it more when I went back and watched the game tape. Right. That in the first half, the defensive linemen were trying to use swim moves to get around and behind the offensive linemen, essentially. And in the second half, they more or less stopped with the swim moves and tried to cut across the face of the linemen to essentially beat them to the spot and beat them to the hole. And that led to a lot of their success against the run game, because in theory, penetration into the backfield is usually a good thing. So those swim moves, going over the linemen, it usually helps blow up running plays in the backfield. But because Baltimore was doing so much outside zone, that was actually running guys too close to the handoff point, and the running back was able to get outside and get around him. Whereas, trying to beat the lineman down the line to the spot helped fill some of those holes and close down some of those outside runs. And it was a fantastic point by Arthur Moats. I can't take credit for it, but I definitely noticed when I went back and watched it. And Isaiah Buggs, for as bad as he played in the first half, filling in for Tyson Alualu, played really, really good in the second half. He did a great job getting off blocks and really helping to plug up the middle. And we did some different things defensively in this game. We used some 5 linebacker sets where we put Bud and TJ on the same side. And, I think the assignment football was a lot better in the second half too.
Absolutely.
There were times in the first half where, TJ was supposed to go after the quarterback and someone else was supposed to have the running back, and the guy didn't have the right. There was some confusion about who was going for who. But the one thing they did do, which we talked about last week, was it seemed like whoever the weak side defensive end was always had the quarterback, and even on plays where Jackson handed off, he still got hit a couple of times by Bud and TJ, and thrown to the ground a couple of times too. That he wasn't allowed to just stand back there and hand it off. They were punishing him anytime they could, and I think it did kind of add up over the game. The other thing I'll say is Jackson had a bad game, but I was not at all impressed with him throwing the ball. We talked last week about how he wasn't real good hitting guys in stride, how he was a lot better throwing to stationary targets, but he sucked. I mean, he was terrible throwing the ball. And at halftime, I was like, man, if they weren't running all over us, if we had a lead in this game, there's no way they could come back, because Jackson just couldn't complete anything out there. And it was bad.
He had a lot of bad throws.
Yeah,
but the pressure percentage was almost 20%, as I recall, after the game, looking through the stats. But I mean, I completely agree with what Ian just said. He was not a good thrower at all. He was really inaccurate, awful.
Well, that's 2 relatively bad games for him in the 2 games that he's played against the Steelers. They, he won the one last year at Heinz Field that in overtime.
He has a combined 7 turnovers, and he's been sacked 9 times in the 2 games he's played against the Steelers.
it's hard to really pinpoint it, but that was kind of the knock on him coming out. Yeah, he was a great runner. Yes, he was dynamic as a thrower at times, but there were questions about the accuracy. There were several plays that I was thinking of that last or second to last drive, where he just hurried and dumped the ball to Mark Andrews, and Andrews didn't have a chance. He barely got a hand on it, and it was all of about an 8-yard pass.
Right.
He just, to go with what Ian just said, if you get a lead on them, I don't have a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to bring that team back. I just don't think he's accurate enough throwing the ball.
He's better when he's standing still than when he's on the move.
Yeah.
If he has time to set his feet and throw the ball, I mean, most quarterbacks are that way anyway.
Right.
But he throws on the move more frequently than most quarterbacks do.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has confidence in himself that he can do it. And he was pressured so often in this game that it affected his accuracy, in my opinion. He looked even worse than he actually is playing against the Steelers because of the way that they played him. And I got to give him credit. They held him. Their game plan was obviously to hold him. It was not to hold the run game, which shocks the hell out of me. I thought it would be the other way around. I thought they were going to dare him to beat them and hold the run game in check, and they did not.
Well, Dobbins is the real deal. Very nice running back. Obviously, we've seen Gus Edwards before. They were without Mark Ingram, and anytime you rush for those kind of yards, you really should win a football game. But I'm glad they didn't, and there's plenty of reasons why they didn't. Go back just for a few minutes, Ian. Offensively, are you concerned at all about the running game with the Steelers? I mean, I know Baltimore's defense isn't exactly a slouch here, but they ran for less than 50 yards. Is that going to get better? Does it have to get better? I mean, what do you see happening there?
It's going to get a lot better this week because Dallas's run defense is garbage.
Dead last.
Yeah. And not only dead last in yards, but also like dead last in yards before contact. Like they're not even getting close to guys. So that being said, some of it was game script, right? When you fall behind by 10 points at halftime, you're going to go away from the running game. And what they did was absolutely what they needed to do. They put the ball in Ben Roethlisberger's hands. They let him essentially call the offense. It essentially turned into a schoolyard offense, but it worked, and Ben has been in this offense long enough that, he can audible to run plays. He can audible out of run plays to pass plays. He can do what he wants based on what he sees. And I trust him at this point. So I'm not terribly concerned about the run game. This was by far our lowest rushing total of the season. Actually, before the Tennessee game, we'd run for over 100 yards in every game. In Tennessee, we ran for 94 total. So I'm not really that concerned about the running game, especially because we kind of reversed the script in this game too. Against Tennessee, we came out throwing the ball, and we talked about how it was like a bell cow game, right? Where you threw the ball to get the lead, and then you ran the ball to run out the clock. Pound it. Right. Same thing we kind of did against Cleveland, right? You threw to take the lead, then you run to grind out the clock in the second half. This game, they came out trying to run the ball over Baltimore, and it didn't really work too well. And they had a lot of 3-and-outs and a lot of punts in the first half. And Baltimore had a lot of long, sustained drives too. I mean, Baltimore dominated the time of possession. It wound up at about a 10-minute difference, but it was a lot more than that for a big chunk of this game too. Yeah, that Baltimore controlled the clock. We didn't run a whole lot of offensive plays. I think Baltimore ran like 70 plays, and we ran like 50. Yeah, it was a big difference in number of plays. The peripheral statistics on this game were not.
They ran 82 plays, and we ran 53.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it was not good. But yeah, I'll say that if we had come out throwing and had a lead, and then we're running the ball later, I think the script would have been flipped a little bit. But since we came out trying to run and that didn't work and had to throw to catch up, and then when you're in the second half and it's in crunch time, and basically every time we got the ball back, we were playing catch up, because once we got the lead, then Baltimore scored again, then we had to come score again. So it was fine. I'm not terribly worried about it, and I expect a big game on the ground this week against Dallas.
Yeah, the numbers all stack up to do just that. Like you said, they're terrible against the run. They're terrible at getting contact before the line of scrimmage. It just everything looks good, and of course that's what scares me. But we'll get into that. Ben, a couple of postscript items here from the Ravens before we move on to talk Dallas a little bit. Why was there so much attention paid to the last play? Was it just simply because of the reaction that Harbaugh made and got caught on camera? Because that was not helmet to helmet at all. Why did it get any attention?
Oh, he got hit in the head, but it doesn't make any difference. They're both playing the ball.
Correct.
It got so much attention because Harbaugh's a fucking whiner. I mean, that's what he does. You want to know, your favorite college coach does the same fucking thing.
Saw a lot of that last week, and I'm hoping we'll see more this week.
God, I mean, it's gotten to the point where
when you lose to a team that just lost to Rutgers.
Ian, it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt me. I love it. I sat there rooting for State to tack on another one, and they did, and I'm like, yes, get that asshole out of here.
Okay, then.
I digress.
Well.
Yeah. Well, okay.
It's gotten to the point where the flair with which the Harbaugh brothers demonstrate their incessant fucking whining has gotten to the point where it's just, you call it Harbaughing. They're Harbaughing.
Oh, it is.
Harbaugh. And it's just awful.
Yeah.
Must have been a real fun family to grow up with. But again, in that instance, they're both receivers, the DB and the receiver. Yes, he was playing the ball. Yeah. They both had the right to try and play the ball. I don't know where Harbaugh can even try and rationalize that was a penalty. The thing that really pisses me off is there are some Ravens fans that believe it was because Harbaugh tells them that it was. It's like, are you kidding me? No. And if that was your guy, if that was your DB, you would call it completely the opposite.
Yep.
So shut the fuck up.
Yeah. It was two guys being athletic, trying to get a ball. They slammed into each other. It looked way worse than it was. And so he, we can't hit in the helmet, all that crap. But So
if he had not been playing the ball, the contact had not been incidental. If Minka was diving at him, trying to get him to drop the ball, then I could see calling the penalty. But that was not the case.
Yeah.
The contact was completely incidental. They both were playing the ball. In fact, Minka touched it first.
Yeah, he had more of the ball at one point.
Yeah. And actually, Snead ran into Minka's arm. It wasn't like Minka jumped into Snead.
Right. Yeah. Right. And by the way, what is up Snead's ass? He just was kind of a dick the whole game. Did you notice that?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess I've seen it before with him a little bit.
There were a handful of Ravens that were a little chippy during the game, I thought. And that's fine. I hate those fuckers anyway. It just gives me more fuel to do so.
One final postscript item. The Marlin Humphrey, of course, Monday morning it was announced that he had tested positive for COVID. And now my understanding is they have other players that are in a similar situation. The NFL has not said boo about their game with Indianapolis this week, so they could be a little shorthanded. And
they've got a bunch of guys on the COVID reserve list. Yeah.
Yep. And I think you got to be on there. You got to have so many negative tests in a row.
Five days in a row of negative tests.
Yeah. So Indy's not a great team, but they can maybe do some things. I wouldn't mind seeing another loss on the Ravens.
Oh man, would that not be fantastic? That would be friggin' wonderful.
You are listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated, serving Broward and the southern Palm Beach counties. Whether it's commercial, residential, multifamily, or condos, contact DEK Roofing today at deckroofing.com.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to talk about the Avery Williamson trade.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. had it on my mental docket, and I hadn't gotten there yet.
Okay. Yeah, obviously we've heard about the fact that the Steelers made a trade with the Jets for Williamson. Excellent trade, in my opinion. Excellent trade. Number one, there's no currency in terms of 2021 draft choices going out the door.
Right.
The Steelers traded away a 2022 fifth, number 5, for Williamson and a 2022 7.
Yep.
Williamson is a free agent next year, and unless he really wows them, I don't expect him to come back.
No.
He very likely will sign with another team and qualify the Steelers for a compensatory draft pick. They may even get that fifth that they traded away back.
Yes. Brilliant move.
Probably not. They'll probably get a 6.
Yeah.
But he will qualify for a draft pick. So they traded away a draft pick that they're going to get back in the form of a 5 or a 6 and picked up a 7 for a rent-a-player who's not super cheap. He makes $2.75 per year, plus $750 per active game in 17 different chunks. So $3.5 million. Just to give you a little backstory, in 2019, he tore his ACL in the preseason because Adam Gase made him stay out and play another series with the backups in the preseason.
That's right.
And then before this year, to stay with the Jets made him take a pay cut.
God.
So you can imagine the guy probably isn't feeling a great deal of loyalty to the Jets.
No.
That might be part of the reason he was so happy to get the hell out of there.
Well, besides the fact that his team was 0-8 and he was going to a team that was 7-0, I mean, sure.
There's that too. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, you're excited about the fact that you are going to a team that could potentially compete for a Super Bowl. And I'm not gonna christen them as the best team in the league yet. I'm not gonna be that guy, but they're a very solid team, and he wanted to be a part of that. Yeah. And the other thing you look at is the Steelers recently signed Ray Wilborn to the practice squad. A rookie out of Ball State who was known in college for his ability as a coverage linebacker.
Tall drink of water. Big tall drink of water.
Yeah, 6'4", 2.25. They did not promote Wilborn to the active roster. Instead, they went ahead and they acquired Avery Williamson. Then it also occurred to me today that they've got Antoine Brooks sitting on the practice squad. They drafted him this year in the 6th. And he was supposed to be
last week, didn't he?
No, he's in the practice squad.
Did.
He's in the practice squad.
Okay.
He's supposed to be a kind of hybrid strong safety coverage linebacker, dimebacker. That was what they drafted him for. And they didn't bring him up either. So it kind of makes you wonder what they think of these guys. Or, and it could just be they think that Williamson is that much better a cover player. Personally, I watched some of his tape from this year. I don't think he's that much better than the guys they have now. He's a little better. Vince in particular lacks lateral quickness. It surprised me when I watched the Ravens game. Spillane, I don't know if he's better at diagnosing plays, and that could just be it. And he's getting on routes a little faster, but he seems to be a little bit better in coverage than Vince is. Not to say that he's good.
No, I know what you mean.
Spillane's a lot better in zone than he is in man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very much so. Smart player.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want either one of those guys in trail. Please, God, no. No. And Williamson is a little better than both, but I'd say that he's slightly above average, but pretty average. He's not, great.
Can we agree, though? Yeah, well, Ian, just let me, because that might be where you're going here. Can we agree that Williamson wasn't brought here to be a cover linebacker, though? I think this is more about depth, isn't it?
I think it's both. I think it's the fact that they need some coverage there. They need somebody who can play on third down. And yeah, they need depth as well. But they're basically getting this guy for next to nothing other than they got to pay him.
Right.
The Jets shed some salary and got something back for a guy that they gave up on.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Ian, what were you going to say?
So a few points to add here. Avery Williamson went to Kentucky, and actually Tomlin had mentioned that he met Williamson at Bud Dupree's pro day, and they had hung out and kind of talked football and all that kind of stuff. So they kind of had their eye on him for a little while.
Yeah.
He got drafted by Tennessee to start, and Tennessee, who, as we know, Dick LeBeau went there after he was here, runs a very similar defense with similar structure, similar terminology to ours. The Jets run a bit of a different defensive scheme. So I think if you want to see how Williamson fits, probably have to look back till 2017 when he played in Tennessee. But it's someone that's has some familiarity with the type of scheme we like to play. And I think the important point too is it's veteran experience and a guy who could potentially call and set up a defense. I know we talked a lot about, who's going to get the green dot now that Devin Bush was out, that if you have another injury there, I mean, they just put Ulysses Gilbert on the injured reserve because of a back injury. We were really thin on depth at linebacker, and having a guy with veteran experience is a big, big plus, especially one that has experience in a system similar to Pittsburgh's, because it's not easy to pick up.
No, I agree. What you said is a great point, especially related to the LeBeau years in Tennessee. And he was playing this year in that Greg Williams defense, and so he's going to have some things to kind of revisit as he comes into Pittsburgh and gets familiar with our defense and so on. But guys, I hate these games coming up. I hate this Cowboy. I'd rather this Cowboys team was 5-2 than 2-5. I can't stand these type of games. I don't think they're trap games. I think this is a good Steelers team. We've talked about how we think it's a special team. We've talked about what they've overcome and still won games. I don't think they're going to overlook this team at all. But that said, it has all those little hallmarks of a game where the Steelers facing a guy that's never started an NFL game before at quarterback. It's either going to be Gilbert. Oh, hello, Maggie.
Hi, Maggie.
It's either going to be Gilbert or it's going to be Cooper Rush, played collegiately at Central Michigan. They're banged up on both sides of the ball. They're just a train wreck. Ben, why should we not worry about this game? Or maybe why would we?
Well, I'm worried for a lot of the reasons you just laid out. I mean, let's be honest, the Steelers have been known at times to play down to their competition, and they have also lost some games they shouldn't have lost in years past. And so, that gives us pause. I think this team, as we talked about before, is a lot better from a character standpoint, and that will serve them well in this situation. So I'm less concerned about that aspect of it. But then you also look at their travel history under Mike Tomlin outside the Eastern time zone. They won a game.
They did
in the Central this year in Nashville.
Yep.
But they've lost a bunch of games.
This is as far west as they'll have to go this year.
This is it. This is the last one. So, this was one of the games at the beginning of the season that I looked at it and at the schedule, and I went, crap, they got to play in Dallas. And I hate Dallas, and I hate Dallas fans, and they might lose that game. And I actually got invited to go to this game. A friend of mine, a customer, a client at work, got a suite, and he invited me to go, and I turned him down. This is like in August.
Well,
and I was like, I don't even know actually if he still has the tickets. I guess obviously they scaled back on the number of people they're allowing into the stadium, but he has a suite, and I was concerned about how poorly they tend to play in those situations. And I knew that if they lost the game and I was in Dallas, I was going to hate my life. So I decided not to go, which that kind of sucks. But yeah, I mean, I also know some Steelers fans that as soon as they found out that Cooper Rush might start, they were like, yeah, selling my tickets.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. Here's what worries me from the strategic point of view. It sounds like Cam Hayward might be able to go.
Why? Why play him? I mean, it's a strained left quad. Why play him? Why not just sit him for a week? Why? Because those injuries can linger and worsen
for sure,
and you're going to need him down the road. Why not just sit him for a week?
But here's what I'm getting at. You're going up against a fairly banged up, injured offensive line.
Yeah,
but they do still have Ezekiel Elliott. They're going to try to run the ball because they're going to have a young, inexperienced quarterback. And your defensive line is basically going to be Tuitt and Isaiah Buggs, who, by the way, is now nursing an ankle injury, and probably Hank Mondo. So that's my concern for this game. Yeah, I just decided to call him Hank. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my concern. But I'm with you. I in a perfect world, I would just be like, hey, Cam, I need you to sit this one out. And maybe he doesn't even get that many snaps. I don't know. If you're gonna,
Cam says he's fine, but right. If I played him at all, I'd have him on a pitch count. I don't think it's worth the risk against a team that is this. I don't want to use the word this bad because that's like selling them short. They're still an NFL team, but
they are.
They're banged up.
Yeah.
They have a new coach. I tend to wonder if they believe in their system, if they believe in each other. They're a mess. And if there is a game that you can afford to lose, this is it.
Yeah, NFC game doesn't hurt.
A non-conference game, away game. You can afford to lose this game. I don't want to lose this game because I fucking hate Dallas fans.
Exactly.
Despise them. But let's be frank, if there is a game they can afford to lose, this is it.
Yeah, and the other thing to factor in here is we're coming off 2 slobber knockers. 2 road games. Yeah, 3.
The Cleveland game was another one, a super physical game. We talked about that before the the Cleveland game.
And they've
had 3 really physical games in a row, and now they're going up against a more of a finesse team.
It is. In a team that has nothing to lose. I mean, I think you'll see all the stops pulled out. They still have good speed at their wide receiver positions, but I just have a hard time seeing us not come out of there with the win.
I would tend to agree with you. I think that Bud and TJ are going to have a field day, and whoever is throwing the ball for the Cowboys is going to be running for his life.
Yeah.
And it's real hard to get the ball to wide receivers when the quarterback's running for his life. It just is.
And another thing too, and I meant to mention this a moment ago. Congratulations to Stephon Tuitt, AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Monster game.
Very well deserved.
2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, a bunch of other tackles. This is the type of play that I think we all expected on a consistent basis from him. And again, the injuries have been an issue. But they
could not block him last week.
No, they
literally could not. They were trying to double him, and he was splitting him. Just going, boom.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
And
I did not, since we're talking defensive line, and Ian mentioned Isaiah Buggs playing much better in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
He played a little better in the second half, but he didn't get doubled at all. And Alualu was getting doubled and still was able to split doubles and or hold the point of attack, which I thought I gave the Ravens a lot of credit for recognizing that Alualu was out and then singling up Buggs after the fact and freeing up another man so they could double either Cam or Tuitt. Yeah. And getting us for a lot of yards on the ground. in the first half. Now, in the second, the Steelers made some adjustments. Ian alluded to those already.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, played more gap sound football in the second half. Still gave up a lot of yards on the ground, I felt, but not as bad as it was in the first.
Ian jumping back in after putting his daughter down to sleep since she, so rudely interrupted the show.
I am back.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a situation where it's going to be Cooper Rush or
Garrett Gilbert.
Garrett Gilbert. Where did he play at Missouri?
He was at Texas to start, and then SMU.
What about Ben DiNucci? He's definitely not going to start?
That's the rumor. They don't want to start him this week.
Yeah.
Well, he was terrible last week. I mean, you saw it.
He was. He was very overwhelmed. He played like you would expect a 7th-round pick to play, and I don't know what Jerry Jones was talking about this week when he said they invested a lot in DiNucci. So I was like, you spent a 7th-round pick on him.
Really?
He's on a rookie deal. He's a rookie quarterback out of James Madison, where, I mean, he was a good FCS quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have a strong arm. His type of throwing the ball was more of your dink and dunk, high percentage throws type offense. He was the Chad Pennington of the FCS. There we go.
Chad Pennington of the FCS.
There's a name.
Yeah. He's not gonna push the ball down the field, but he can be efficient and win you games. But that's not at all what Dallas's offense is built to do, because Dallas's offense is built for Dak Prescott to grip it and rip it down the field. And we talked a lot about that last year when Ben was hurt, that you need backup quarterbacks that can run a similar system to what your starting quarterback can do.
Yes.
And granted, Dallas is now on their 3rd quarterback, or it'll be 4th this week, depending on who they start.
Right.
But I have no sympathy for them, because there's Steelers fans out there who wanted Mike McCarthy so bad, and Mike McCarthy 2-5 with backup quarterbacks, and Mike Tomlin went 8-8 with Duck Hodges playing quarterback. So there you go. The one thing I will add though is Garrett Gilbert. He's been kind of a journeyman backup, hasn't started a lot in the league
at all.
Started at Texas, then went to SMU. He does have some running ability, so we do have to be cognizant of that.
So does Rush.
If he does start, and Rush does too. You're probably more familiar with Rush, having played at Central Michigan than I am. So just to be cognizant of that, although coming off a game against Lamar Jackson, I would I would be shocked if a scrambling quarterback took us by surprise. But really, I don't see this game. The only way I see us losing this game is if Ezekiel Elliott goes crazy and has a massive game. But we just had a game where we gave up 265 on the ground and still won. And Dallas's offensive line is garbage. They're terrible. Zeke has not been good all year. And so really the only way I see us losing this game is if we beat ourselves, if we commit a bunch of turnovers, if we throw some pick sixes like we did a couple times in Oakland. I always go to the Raiders games, right? Because those are always those games where we're supposed to win them.
They sure seem to be.
Gotta bring that shit up.
But neither of these quarterbacks are going to run for a 97-yard touchdown like Terrell Pryor did. But
knock on wood.
If we have one of those games where Ben throws 4 interceptions and 2 or 3 of them get taken back for touchdowns, then we could lose. But if the Steelers play their game, don't commit a bunch of penalties, and don't commit a bunch of turnovers, there's no way I see us losing this game.
Well, and any catches that are disputed, we know are going to go against us, because Tony Correnti is the official, and he once officiated the Jesse James catch, not a catch game, but I won't go any further into that. So, Ben, final thoughts as we wrap things up here on the show.
Final thoughts. Cowboys suck donkey balls, and we better win this fucking game. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, if we lose this game, I personally will never hear the fucking end of it, and I despise Cowboys fans. I cannot stand them. That's the reason everybody hates the Cowboys. Nobody hates the Cowboys players. They just like it when the Cowboys lose, because they like to see their goddamn fans sad.
There's really a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth there.
It's 100%. Think about this. The Cowboys haven't really been relevant in a couple of decades.
Oh no!
Every once in a while they make the
yeah.
playoffs. They go out in the first round. It's it's fine.
Yeah.
It's over. Whatever. They really haven't been a competitive team for a long time. People hate the Cowboys because they hate their fucking fans. That's it.
There's no argument for me. I have no argument. Prediction, Ben. Give me your prediction for Sunday's game.
Oh shit, I forgot. Well, when last I checked, the Steelers were only favored by 3.5.
Add a 10 to that. It's 13.5.
Is it really?
Say it.
Yeah.
Oh shit, they're not going to cover. 13.5. Really?
Yeah.
I'll just have to make it up on the spot. Usually, I have these things worked out before we do this. Let me see. Is it really 13.5?
It is. It's almost Chiefs Jets territory.
Oh my god. Steelers 28, Cowboys 18. 10 of those points scored in garbage time. I don't know.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. I'd love to see some garbage time. That means I'm relaxed and not having a coronary like Fred Sanford. Ian, final thoughts and a prediction.
All right, I'll start with a prediction first. Because while Ben was going through that, I worked it out in my head. I'll go with Steelers 34-13. It'll be
an ass whipping.
Hold on.
Yeah.
It'll be close. It'll be close at halftime, though. It'll be like 17-10 or something, and people will be like, "Oh, we're so terrible. We should be kicking the shit out of this team." The same people that wanted to fire Mike Tomlin at halftime of the Texans game will be throwing a giant fit on Twitter, and then we'll pull away in the second half because they can't hang with us for two halves. There's a reason football games are 60 minutes and not 20 or 30
or 28 or 45. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yes. So, yes, I'll go 34-13 is my prediction. One other thought that I will add, I have sack data in a spreadsheet dating back to 2000. I don't have it all the way back to 1982 when sacks became an official statistic, but at least since 2000, there has not been a team that's had 3 guys record double-digit sacks. There's been teams that had 2. But no one's had 3. And right now, Dupree and Tuitt both have 6 sacks, and Watt has 6.5. And we're only 7 games into the season. So if you extrapolate that, like all 3 of them are on pace to at least get to that 10 sack mark to hit those double-digit sacks.
Wow.
So it would be Ben was talking about how good Tuitt has been this year. We know how good Dupree and Watt are because they both hit that double-digit sack barrier last year.
Yep.
And Tuitt's on pace to do it this year too. So I mean that would be a historic situation for our defensive front.
And to piggyback on that, the Steelers now have a sack in 65 straight games. The record is, I believe, 69 by the Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks Buccaneer group. So hopefully we will achieve that in the next month here.
Yeah. Considering we're going to have either Gilbert or Cooper Rush this week, I got to think we get one unless Tony Corrente calls 0 holding penalties on Dallas' trash offensive line. Next week we have the Bengals, which Joe Burrow is leading the league in pass attempts, which I don't know if that's the best way to
and getting killed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That too. And then the Jaguars, who are starting some guy I never heard of because Gardner Minshew's hurt this week. So I like our chances the next 3 weeks. And then we've got Baltimore on Thanksgiving night, and we just saw what happened there too. Plus, 2 of their linemen got hurt in that game, including Ronnie Stanley, who they just paid a bunch of money for.
Tons of money.
Was not a dirty hit by TJ Watt, by the way. It was just one of those plays that happens. He came across, and if he hits Jackson, everything's fine. But he missed Jackson, and it is what it is. But final thoughts on Dallas.
Yeah.
Their receivers are good. They've got some good receivers,
yes,
but
they
don't have a quarterback that can get them the ball. Actually, Tony Pollard, their backup running back, is having a better season than Ezekiel Elliott is, but they paid Zeke like $15 million a year, so they can't bench him for Pollard, who objectively has been the better running back, and they do use Pollard on like kick returns mostly. So, but keep an eye out for him because I mean he's got some He's got some quicks. He
does.
He's a better runner than Zeke is. And yeah, their defense is absolutely garbage. Linebackers are decent, but the rest of it, the defensive front is terrible. Yeah, they're just not good. So really, as long as I fully expect us to come out, I'd like to see us throw early, get the lead, and then be able to grind it down. James Conner should be able to have a field day here. But don't put Ben in bad situations. Use the running game, eat up the clock, get out of here. Survive in advance here. We made it through 3 brutal, tough physical games. Don't get yourself killed here in Dallas. Don't suffer a season-ending injury when you don't have a bye week here the second half of the season. Because let's not forget, this was kind of supposed to be our bye week here after the Baltimore game. It was, and unfortunately, it's not going to be. But we'll grind on and persevere, as they say.
One more postscript, because Ian brought up the 60 minutes thing. I used to watch football with a guy named Bob Butler who passed away a couple years ago, and I watched with a large group of Steelers fans. It ranges. Well, this year it's like 50 people, but it used to be a couple of hundred people, and they're typical Steelers fans. So if the Steelers aren't playing great or they have a bad series, people would fucking bitch. And Bob would. He was a very loud man. Not like I am at all, but
not at all.
Very loud man, and he would yell, "How many minutes of football? 60 minutes of football! Quit your sniveling!"
60-minute men, baby.
People would shut the fuck up and get back into the game. And God damn it, if Ian didn't remind me of that tonight. So, Bob, looking down from wherever you are right now, thank you for that. You are remembered.
That is that's beautiful, and let's hope we do get a solid 60 minutes from the black and gold. And I think this is 30-13. I think we'll come out. We'll take care of some things fairly early. It won't be a big lead at halftime, but we'll get into the second half, get a decent enough lead where we can relax and not chew our fingernails right down to the bone or anything like that. But then again, as we've talked about, these are the games that scare me with Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm sticking to my guns. I'll go 30-13. All right, we're getting out of here. For Ian and Ben, this is Steel Dad saying so long on the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast, presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And hey, go Steelers!
And hey, Ravens suck.
Fuck the Cowboys.